The Foundation ordered a male D-Class personnel to torture D-3032 with a combat knife until she opened the door. After 2 hours of tormenting, D-3032 died from blood loss. She made no attempt to open the door in the entire process. Hello everybody, I'm TheRubber. Today, we bring you SCP Foundation Euclid Class Object SCP-303. SCP-303, also known as the Doorman, is a nude, sexless, emaciated humanoid figure with reddish-brown skin. Instead of normal facial features, its head is dominated by an extremely large mouth, which bears a set of oversized human teeth. It continually vocalizes a wheezing noise loud enough to be heard from the other side of most solid doors. SCP-303 will periodically materialize behind any closed door, hatch, or other entryway barrier opposite an observer, chosen by unknown means. 303 will then remain behind the door for an indeterminate amount of time. Any individual attempting to open the door or barrier will experience intense, paralyzing fear that lasts until 303 dematerializes. However, analysis indicates that SCP-303 is not, in fact, purposefully inducing fear in the victims. SCP-303 does not allow itself to come into direct visual contact with any observer, and has never allowed any individual to view more than 10% of its form. When the door or other entryway barrier is partially or completely transparent, 303 will materialize in an orientation that leaves only 10% or less of its body visible, or cause effects of fog or frost on the transparent surface to achieve the same effect. If SCP-303 is approached from a direction in which there is not a solid object or door-breaking line of sight, it will dematerialize before direct visual contact is made. Any electronic or complex mechanical devices that 303 encounters will temporarily be disabled. 303 has made no recorded attempt to engage any observer physically or verbally. In an incident, a Foundation agent was showering in her private quarters bathroom when she became aware of the presence of 303 on the opposite side of the shower curtain. It was wheezing extremely loudly. Startled by the discovery, she accidentally struck the shower curtain, causing it to sway outwards. The curtain partially wrapped around 303, revealing that it was less than 0.5 meters from the curtain, standing erect and facing the shower. The agent reports spending approximately the next 3 hours sobbing in the shower, quietly, as not to disturb 303. Luckily, the agent was able to exit the shower when 303's wheezing stopped. In another incident, an agent encountered 303 inside the Foundation's break room. He was attempting to obtain coffee creamer from the counter cabinet when he heard loud wheezing emanating from the cabinet and was overtaken by overwhelming fear. The agent later reported that 303 was huddled in the cabinet in a fetal position. The agent was too afraid to open the cabinet at that moment, but later, when the cabinet was examined, one container of powdered coffee creamer was missing. This is the first recorded instance of SCP-303 removing an object from a scene. After the object missing incident, a professor was discovered dead from dehydration in a second-floor storage room. It was estimated that the professor spent up to 5 days in the storage room before being discovered. A small 4-meter by 4-meter decompression chamber separated the storage room from the adjoining hallway. 303 occupied the decompression chamber for the duration of the professor's isolation in the storage room, disallowing entry from either direction and making it impossible for him to leave. After all the above incidents, a team consisting of a researcher, a professor, 4 security personnel, and 4 D-Class personnel were assigned to immediately perform on-site testing. The following test took place at the door to a room from the first-floor hallway, which SCP-303 was reported to be within the room. One male D-Class personnel, D-3031, was ordered to open the door, and threatened that if he does not open the door, he would be transferred to another horrible SCP duty for non-compliance. He refused, citing extreme fear. Then, the Foundation threatened him again, saying that if he doesn't do it, he would be terminated on the spot for non-compliance. He refused, claiming that if he were to do so, that SCP-303 would hurt him. He was terminated on the spot. Shortly after, a female D-Class personnel, D-3032, that had witnessed the termination of D-3031 was ordered to open the door. and threatened that she would be terminated on the spot for non-compliance. She refused, claiming that if she opened the door, that SCP-303 would hurt her. And although D-3032 was not terminated, the Foundation ordered a male D-Class personnel, D-3033, to torture D-3032 with a combat knife until she opened the door. After 2 hours of tormenting, D-3032 died from blood loss. She made no attempt to open the door in the entire process. The Foundation once assigned Dr. Hessen to test on SCP-303, along with SCP-729-J. SCP-729-J is a soft toy that gives death stare and corrode anything or anyone who even catches a slight look at it. When Dr. Hessen was told to walk through the door with 303 on the other side while holding SCP-729-J, 303 promptly opened the door for Dr. Hessen and ushered her through before quickly exiting the room, with Dr. Hessen showing no sign of the usual fear response. 303 was found 6 hours later in an abandoned storage closet in a fetal position, sucking its thumb. SCP-303 appears to have claimed the second-floor storage room as its own. It has so far disallowed any personnel entry to the room since May 4th of 2010. It leaves periodically to acquire Foundation property, which is then moved into the second-floor storage room. To date, 303 has acquired 1 cryotube, 3 sets of standard Foundation surgical equipment, 2 D-Class research cadavers, 1 gasoline-powered generator, a variety large quantities of chemicals, and also a container of powdered coffee creamer. In addition to this, a number of classified materials have been obtained by SCP-303. Staff are still attempting to determine what specific purposes SCP-303 may have for these materials. 303 was also suspected of stealing SCP-573 and SCP-899. This incident was recorded in Site-62's containment breach record. It was about 1:34 a.m. that day, and 303 manifests outside Site-62's main entrance. Security personnel were panicking and fleeing. 10 minutes later, 303 opens Site-62's main entrance doors. Video feeds overcome with static for a period of 36 seconds. Video blackout follows possible route of entity through site. Then, a SCP personnel reported seeing 303. It headed towards inanimate SCP storage vaults. Security team was tasked to contain 303 immediately. After about 20 minutes, the entire security team was incapacitated by SCP-303. 303 exits Site-62 unopposed, and video interference finally ceases. Security later reports an overwhelming feeling of terror, preventing them from acting against 303. Upon inspection of Site-62 after the incident, SCP-573 was found missing. Warnings sent out to all sites to be on guard for the entity. However, things didn't just end there. Around 6:17 in the evening the next day, personnel at an unknown site report feeling of unease and panic. As the site is situated in the Rocky Mountains, it was put on lockdown while nearby sites were contacted. All the video feeds of the site were disrupted. Power fails, distress signal deactivates automatically. The site was unresponsive to outside contact. After an hour, MTF Alpha 16 finally arrived at the site, but all personnel found dead of evisceration or remain missing. MTF fails to verify location of anomaly housed at the site. SCP-899 declared missing. As SCP-303 has not yet been known to travel beyond the boundaries of an unknown site of the SCP Foundation, the entire area of the site is currently considered as SCP-303's containment area. All rooms in the site are to be altered, as to have 2 entrances separated by a distance of 10 meters or line of sight. Personnel are to be distributed evenly throughout the facility, with available radio or intercom contact so that encounters may be resolved quickly. Personnel who witness SCP-303 are to be submitted for immediate psychiatric evaluation. All SCP objects housed at the same site since before April 6, 2010 are to be transferred to another site, one at a time. During the night, SCP-3008-2 will become violent towards all other life forms within SCP-30081. They will run towards other life forms like a chicken with its head cut off. Whenever it is nighttime, SCP-30082 will smash the huge wall of town with bare hands, while calmly and politely vocalize phrases in English that are typically variations of
"The store is now closed. Please exit the building."
"Hello everybody, I'm TheRubber. Today, we bring you a SCP Foundation Euclid class object, SCP-308. SCP-308, also known as a perfectly normal, regular Old IKEA, is a large retail unit previously owned by and branded as IKEA, a popular furniture retail chain. SCP-30081 is a space resembling the inside of an IKEA furniture store, extending far beyond the limits of what could physically be contained within the dimensions of the retail unit. Current measurements indicate an area of at least 10 square kilometers with no visible external terminators detected in any direction. Inconclusive results from the use of laser rangefinders has led to the speculation that the space may be infinite. A person entering SCP-308 through the main entrance and then passing out of sight of the doors will find themselves translocated to SCP-30081. This displacement will typically go unnoticed, as no change will occur from the perspective of the victim. They will generally not become aware until they try to return to the entrance. The entrance of SCP-308 is to be monitored at all times, and no one is to enter SCP-308 outside of testing, as permitted by the senior researcher. SCP-30081 is inhabited by an unknown number of civilians trapped within prior to containment. Gathered data suggests they have formed a rudimentary civilization within SCP-30081, including building a giant wall and an entire town built out of shelves and beds and tables for the purpose of defending against SCP-30082. Although there is no detailed description of SCP-30082 in the document, however, the Foundation personnel had found a man's diary, and in the diary, it has records of his experience in SCP-30081 in meeting with SCP-30082. SCP-30082 are humanoid entities that exist within SCP-30081. In all observed cases, they wear a yellow shirt and blue trousers consistent with the IKEA employee uniform. They are 7 feet tall monsters with long arms and short legs, have no facial features with no eyes or ears, and have hands that were big enough to crush a watermelon. But it is strange that they go down as easy as a regular human being once you start stabbing or cutting them open. However, they don't seem to bleed, and their corpses would not rot, let alone the stench of the rotten corpses. SCP-30081 has a rudimentary day-night cycle, determined by the overhead lighting within the space activating and deactivating at times consistent with the opening and closing times of the original retail store. During the night, SCP-30082 will become violent towards all other life forms within SCP-30081. They will run towards other life forms like a chicken with its head cut off. Whenever it is nighttime, SCP-30082 will smash the huge wall of town with bare hands, while calmly and politely vocalize phrases in English that are typically variations of
"The store is now closed. Please exit the building."
Hence, everyone is prepared for it. Knives from the restaurants, lawnmower blades made into hatchets, a fire axe. In one incident, they discovered a hole on the giant wall, and ever since then, they would stab SCP-30082 through the hole if they ever come smashing the wall at night. Apparently, the dead ones will attract more during the night, so the people had to get the bodies away from the town. They loaded them up on a trolley and took them over to the pickup area, as they were curious about how SCP-30082 looked like when it was cut open. They discovered that SCP-30082 only have skin, or something that looks like skin, but no muscles, bones, or organs. Once day begins, SCP-30082 immediately become passive and begin moving throughout SCP-30081 seemingly at random. They are unresponsive to questioning or other verbal cues in this state, though will react violently if attacked. So during the day, people go out to find food, water, and whatever else they need. Apparently, there are restaurants and shops around that randomly get restocked, but no one knows who did it. SCP-30081 is known to have one or more exits located within, though these exits do not appear to have a fixed position, making it difficult to leave SCP-30081 once inside. Using any other door besides the main entrance to enter the structure or breaking through the walls of the retail unit leads into the non-anomalous interior of the original store. Since containment began, 14 individuals have managed to exit SCP-308. Humans exiting SCP-3008 are to be detained and then debriefed prior to the administration of amnestic. Dependent upon the duration of their stay in SCP-3008, a cover story may need to be generated prior to their release. According to the man's diary, Foundation personnel has attempted to send a drone into SCP-30081. Although analysis of footage shows a small town labeled as Exchange and Returns, but unfortunately it failed when trying to find the settlement again. And according to the records in the diary, we seem to be able to speculate that the people trapped inside may come from different places or dimensions, because the people in there have some seriously odd gaps in their knowledge. Some of them have never heard of the International Space Station, and some come from places where there is no declaration of independence. And no one has ever tried large-scale searching for these people who were trapped inside of SCP-30081. Does that mean that these people are from different places, hence it did not cause a huge panic of missing people? 10 seconds after the owner of the diary exited SCP-3008, and SCP-30082 followed from behind. It caught and killed the man before itself being terminated by armed response personnel. Several shots were fired at the creature's face. When the creature's face fell on him and the camera was pushed to the ground, his screams were obscene. Hello everybody, I'm TheRubber. Today, we bring you SCP Foundation Euclid Class Object SCP-093 Part 2. SCP-093 is a red disc carved from cinnabar with symbols on it. It will change hue when held by a living individual. A series of testing on human interaction with mirrors while holding 093 have been authorized. To know more about 093 and its first mirror test, click here to watch Part 1. Records below details the second testing. Mirror Test 2. Color green. Test subject D54493 was a 23-year-old female with average physique and had a history of car robbery and second-degree murder of 2 children. The subject entered the provided mirror while holding SCP-093, which emitted a green color. Outside technicians observed that the mirror retained a true reflection until subject had completely passed into it, at which time the view changed to a farming landscape, heavily tinged in green. The camera was on. The subject looked up, and in front of her was a farmland. The field had been long abandoned, with the remains of a rotten scarecrow placed in the middle. On the right was a 2-story farmhouse, with a basement shelter entrance at one end. The subject then headed over and investigated the perimeter of the farmhouse. There, she found 2 children's bicycles leaning on the house near the cellar door. As the subject entered the cellar, on the stairs were boys' clothes, arranged in descending order, shoes to shirt. The subject started screaming at the control center and asked if this was some sort of sick joke. It was unknown if SCP-093 was linking the subject's past with her landscape. After several minutes, the subject agreed to continue. The basement was unremarkable, with several wooden frames lined up on the wall, with unnamed canned substances on them. Subject panned the camera across the basement slowly. It looked as if it had been abandoned for some time, and subject complained of a stench. The subject then opened and entered the hatch. Below the hatch was a white concrete tunnel. The inside of the hatch was spacious, about half the size of the actual cellar itself. There were 3 bunks, 1 for a couple and 2 for single use. Several boxes of food marked as cereal filled a waste container near the hatch bottom. On the beds were 2 skeletons, and on the floor was a third, lying next to a 6-shooter revolver. On the other side of the skeleton, a bound book was found. The subject retrieved and placed the book into a field kit container upon request. She was also told to keep the old clipped articles that were on a desk into the field kit container. The subject was told to leave the bunker. When the subject grabbed the ladder and was ready to leave, the camera caught a humanoid figure peeking down from the top of the tunnel. But subject stated that nothing was up there and started climbing up the ladder. At the top of the tunnel, the subject insisted that there was nothing there. She vomited immediately after the hatch was closed. After coughing for a while, the subject suddenly heard a noise. She was startled by the sound, but control reported no audio. Subject approached cellar hatch cautiously, pulled out firearm, and lifted her head just enough so camera can view the outside area. In the distance, approximately 700 meters from the farm, two massive humanoid beings were crawling across the landscape. They have no facial features. The arms they used for crawling were short at times and long at others. It's different each time they move. There was no rear area to the beings. All bodily design appears to end at the torso. The two creatures took approximately 10 minutes to disappear into the distance. Then the subject began to panic and begged to return. Request declined. Subject instructed to enter the home from the cellar through a rusty hatch in the ceiling. The subject entered the kitchen first. All of the items were coated in heavy dust. The subject then entered the living area. There was a recliner, a couch, and a television, all of 1950s style design. The main door of the home was nailed shut with thick wood planks. Camera panned to a staircase leading upstairs. When subject reached the top of the stairs, there were two doors, one on each side of the hallway, and at the end of the hall, a dumbwaiter was inlaid into the wall. The door on the left led to a master bedroom. The bed was neatly made, but the wardrobe next to it was thrown open, and clothes were everywhere on the floor. Subject quickly left the room because of the horrible odor. The second door led to a shared children's bedroom, which seemed to belong to a boy and a girl. There was also a window which subject approached, and upon request, she moved the camera to capture the outside view. When the camera panned down and filmed the area around the house, approximately 300 figures were all staring right up at her. Subject asked to confirm the figures, but stated nothing was there. The subject was told to quickly return. Nothing happened when subject got out of the farmhouse. Subject returned through point of origin and mirror returned to reflective surface. SCP-093 relinquished. Mirror Test 3. Color violet. Subject was D84930, male, 21 years old, and had a record of second-degree murder of a police officer during a drug bust. This subject was uncooperative. Subject entered the provided mirror while holding SCP-093, which emitted a violet color. The mirror retained a true reflection until subject had completely passed into it. The view changed to a cityscape, urban, lightly tinged in purple. Camera turned on and panned around the area. Subject was in a modern downtown district similar to a city like New York. The streets were almost empty, with only a few cars of unknown model. The subject wiped off a window that was covered in dirt and discovered that the inside of the car was completely filled with a strange brown matter. The other two cars were the same. However, the inside of the fourth vehicle was immaculate. The doors to this vehicle were unlocked, and subject entered the car and then quickly closed the door, hoping that he would be able to escape by cutting off the cable. Subject argued with Control over this issue. Subject looked around the cityscape from the car, while Control was discussing how to proceed since the city landscape was far larger than the previous test destinations. During one pan, a face was clearly seen staring into the car, and eyes were on the subject. However, this was not noticed until post-test footage review. Control soon informed subject to remain where he was, and a team of 4 armed personnel were dispatched through the mirror to join him. Subject was then instructed to remove his harness. Subject's video feed then ended and was replaced by a wireless camera used by the escort team. Subject left the car and moved with the team. They then entered a building with XEA Research Partners Incorporated hanging on all of the glass doors. In the lobby, there was a C-shaped receptionist desk with a PC terminal on the desk. The team approached and examined the PC, and Faithful OS appeared on the screen, which required a password to log in. After one failed attempt, the PC turned off automatically. Behind the receptionist desk were 2 elevator doors. Using the elevator on the right, the team was instructed to proceed to the highest floor, level 114, to get an overview of the city. At level 114, the doors opened, and the team entered a large lounge. A series of windows were open. and the team went over to place the camera outside. The city below was gray and silent. Some buildings in the city were covered with strange brown growth, as if a gelatinous mass were flung and then seeped down before hardening. From another window, the team noticed a highway that encircles the city, upon which crawled another of the large half-body humanoids, dragging itself with its elastic arms as witnessed in previous tests. It traveled the highway, then moved out of sight. The team then returned to the elevator and agreed to travel to level 74. The 74th floor was a doctor's office. At the reception desk, there was a sign in form with the date of 1953. They opened a door sketched with the title Dr. Borisiskai, Blessed Purificationist, and a crucifix, which led them to a white dust-free hallway, with 2 examination rooms and a key-coded door at the end. A small amount of C4 was placed on the lock of the key-coded door and then exploded, forcing the door to open. The area contained 6 large containment capsules. 2 were broken, 1 was empty, and the last 3 had nude humans floating in them, with breathing masks. Attached to the front of these tubes were medical charts showing vital signs and conditions of these bodies. Control asked for a zoom of one of the patient's pages on the chart. It wrote, Citizen Alberius Farafan, struck out at a high father during a sermon, blaspheming that the Lord's tears did turn his daughter to be unright in mind and heart, thusly laying blame for her whorish activities at the feet of the High Father and his blessing. Alberius Farafan should bathe in the Lord's tears himself for a week to be cleansed of mind and soul, thus to prove his daughter's ways are fault of not the Father's hands and to give him peace of self. Subject started to panic. The camera panned to focus on him, and he was surrounded by entities similar to those witnessed in the first 2 tests. Control told them to stand still and wait. Subject screamed at the entities. Control requested one of the members to approach and recover him. The entities parted to make a pathway for the approaching member, who lifted Subject to his feet and brought him out. The entities kept staring at the subject no matter where he moved to. Control requested the team to return immediately. Before leaving, a team member took a binder labeled The Lord's Tears on the reception desk and then put it in the subject's field kit. Upon leaving the building, Subject pointed at one of the large torsos crawling at the entry point. It turned its featureless head to look at the escort team, raised its head to the sky, and emitted a bellowing sound. Team leader issued them to move quickly. The creature on the highway extended an arm down to touch the ground. All but one member of the team passed through the entry point. Subject passed through entry point, and mirror returned to reflective surface. The subject quickly dropped SCP-093 but was executed by the team leader as subject pulled out the field kit pistol. The uniform and possessions of the escort team member who was left behind were present and recovered, but the member himself is nowhere to be seen and does not respond to shouts, and his wireless receiver was recovered. Later review of the recovered camera showed the member was grasping for air and then turned to look up at the oversized torso. A brown gel dripped off the creature as it moves, but disappeared shortly after being dislodged. Several shots were fired at the creature's face. When the creature's face fell on him and the camera was pushed to the ground, his screams were obscene. Camera feed remained dark for approximately 65 seconds before light came back, and the camera filmed the creature crawling back to the highway. The member believed to have been absorbed by the creature and perhaps digested.